Hello and welcome to Sleep Stories for Kids. Tonight's story is The Magic Carousel. Kira was so excited. Today was the day that Kylie and Alyssa were coming to visit, and they were all going to the Living Desert Zoo. The Living Desert was one of Kira's favorite places to go, and not just because there were acres and acres of nooks and crannies of all kinds of secret trails and treasures to explore. But her favorite part was the wild animal carousel. Every time she came to the Living Desert, she wanted to go first right to the carousel and choose her favorite animal that she would ride. Once the music stopped, it was always hard to get Kira off because she just loved it so much, going up and down to the wonderful carousel music, and she would imagine that whatever creature she was riding would break free and go running through the park. She already decided when they were in the car on the way to the zoo that today she would choose the hummingbird. And she would do like she always did with the hummingbird and imagine it breaking free and flying over the top of the living desert. She would look down and see the giraffes and the zebras and the cheetahs. So many different animals that she could see from high up on her hummingbird. When she looked down, it looked completely different than it usually looked when she was walking on the pathways through the park. All three girls were talking about which animal they were going to choose, and Kira said, "I'm going to pick the hummingbird." Kylie said, "I'm definitely trying the cheetah, the fastest animal there is." And Alyssa said, "I think I'll wait until we get to the carousel, and then I'll know which animal is the one for me." Now, Kira's mom had brought a picnic lunch, so they went off in their favorite little trail to their favorite little spot next to the tiny lake and the little creek, and they set up their picnic, and they still were talking about how excited they were going to be when they finally made it to the carousel. They ate their lunch, and the sun was beginning to set, so they decided to make their way over to the wild animal carousel next to the park. The tram came by just in that very second, and they all hopped on and took the tram as fast as it could go right over to the corner where the beautiful big carousel was. Now at this point, the sun was almost set. None of the girls had ever been in the park after dark, and all kinds of interesting sounds that they've never heard before started to arise out of the darkness. But the lights of the carousel were still glowing and lighting up the night. So they went up to the ticket booth and handed their tickets, and all three girls ran aboard the carousel. Kira was looking quickly for her hummingbird. She knew exactly where it was, and she was making her way over there. Kylie immediately spotted her cheetah and jumped on. And Alyssa said, "I know which animal is for me, the eagle." And she hopped on. As soon as the music started, the carousel started slowly going round and round, and their animals were moving up and down, as the carousel went round and round and round to the music. As she always did, Kira started to imagine her hummingbird breaking loose and flying up into the night sky with a grand, broad view of the Living Desert Zoo. Now, as she was imagining this, the carousel started to shake. She didn't know what was going on. All the girls were looking at each other, wondering what was happening, as the carousel was shaking faster and faster and faster, and spinning around faster and faster. And their animals were moving up and down, faster and faster. And then in the flash of an eye, their animals broke free from the carousel. Kylie's cheetah started running as fast as it could go, all through the park, clear up over the mountain. And Kira's hummingbird and Alyssa's eagle took flight. They were flying up and up, higher and higher, over the top of the zoo. They could see all the animals around. They could see Kylie's cheetah just a little bit ahead of them and below, running as fast as it could go. They didn't have any control over these animals, and they didn't know where they were going. Kira asked her hummingbird, "Where are you taking us?" She received no response, but the hummingbird kept flying faster and faster and faster, up toward the stars. It was amazing, the view of the zoo from this high up. She could see all kinds of trails that she didn't even notice before. She could see people down below making their way to their cars to go home for the night. She knew at this point it had to be almost bedtime. But there she was, high up in the air, amidst the stars, glowing brightly all around her. She could see Alyssa to the left, flying fast on her eagle, and Kylie was down below, running as fast as can be on her cheetah. Where were they going? Where would they end up? Finally, the hummingbird said to Kira, "I'm taking you to the land of the fairies. I want you to meet the deep sleep fairy, who's a friend of mine. Now it's time for you girls to go to sleep. And she's just the person to help you." Kira said, "But what about my mom, who's back at the carousel?" And the hummingbird said, "It's a magic carousel and a magic land. And soon you'll be back with your mom, holding her hand. But for now, we're flying high, higher and higher through the sky to visit my friend in fairyland, the deep sleep fairy. You've heard about her before. She's helped many of your friends walk through the door to dreamland." Kira thought, "I'd really like to be home, cozy in my bed, tucked in my own home." And again the hummingbird must have read her mind, because she said, "This is a magic land. Soon you'll be home, holding your mom's hand, cozy in your own bed, on your way to dreamland." And then, just as fast as they had all taken off, the eagle and the hummingbird started to land, fluttering right above the cheetah as they all came to a slow and gentle stop down below. When they were there, they saw a tree tunnel And the hummingbird told them that this is the entrance to fairyland. Now, the girls had no idea where they were. They had flown and ran so far on their animals that now they were just in the middle of the trees with the small tree tunnel that the hummingbird said leads to fairyland, and her friend, the deep sleep fairy. Now Kira did remember hearing about the deep sleep fairy and how she had helped so many others who were tired but just couldn't fall asleep. So Kira and Alyssa and Kylie walked into the trees, headed toward fairyland, and looking for Hummingbird's friend, the deep sleep fairy, who lived at the edge of the woods. As they were making their way through the green, dark forest, they heard music, gentle, soft music, like a lullaby. The lullabies they all remembered from when they were babies. The lullabies their mom would play to help them fall into a deep and restful sleep. Oh wow, listening to these lullabies made them all sleepy. And they kept walking, knowing that they were headed to meet Hummingbird's friend, the deep sleep fairy, who helped all children who were ready for bedtime. Kira couldn't figure out if this was a dream. Was she dreaming this? Did she fall asleep and dream that she went to the living desert with her friends? Or was this really happening? Was she making her way through the forest to the deep sleep fairy's house, this deep sleep fairy that she's heard about since she was really small? She didn't even know if the deep sleep fairy existed. And then Hummingbird said, yes, she's her friend. And now they were on their way to meet her. At last they reached the end of the trail, and a beautiful, round, rose-colored door. And Kira just knew in her heart that this was the home of the deep sleep fairy. So she quietly tapped on the door. The door opened, and a wonderful, wonderful, restful smell came from the house. A beautiful purple light was shining from inside. Just looking at it made her realize how tired she really was. She heard a noise, a fluttering of little wings, and she looked up and there was the most beautiful little fairy with a purple glow. And she said, "Hello, I am the deep sleep fairy. And I'm going to use my magic sparkles to help you and your friends make your way to dreamland." She had a pile of beautiful soft cushions all over the floor of her home. And she invited the girls to just lay down and have a little rest after all the excitement of flying and running through the night sky to reach her. As they laid down and got comfortable, the tiny deep sleep fairy pulled a very small little jar with crystals on the outside out of a drawer and opened it up. She poured into her hand thousands of little glittering jewels, sparkles. What were they? All the girls were looking at them as the deep sleep fairy blew them into the air. The sparkles fluttered all around Kira and Kylie and Alyssa, like they have for all the children before who made their way to the deep sleep fairy's home. Now, as soon as these sparkles started to fall from the sky all around the girls, surrounding them, landing on their face so gently, they felt so relaxed. Every muscle in their whole body just relaxed into the cushions in the deep sleep fairy's home. Every sparkle that fell from the sky made the girls more and more sleepy. They all breathed so deep as they relaxed even more into the softest cushions they feel like they have ever laid in. And their eyes were just so heavy. They couldn't even keep them open. They were so heavy and so tired. They all knew that this was a magic carousel, and they were now on their way to dreamland. As they were going to to sleep, drifting deeper and deeper. They could hear in the distance, the far distance, the other fairies in fairyland, doing all their fairy duties. And all they knew was that they were laying in a pile of comfortable soft cushions in the middle of the deep sleep fairy's living room. Kira had always known about the deep sleep fairy, and she had always dreamed of meeting her. And now here she was, drifting away to sleep with the deep sleep fairy's sparkles falling all around her. The girls all had their eyes completely closed. They could hardly feel their bodies. They were so relaxed. Their eyes were so heavy, and their head was so heavy and relaxed on their pillow. And Kira knew that now that she had been to the deep sleep fairy's home in the forest, that she would always know how to return if she ever needed any help, falling deep asleep. Kira always knew there was something magical about the wild animal carousel at the living desert. And now she knew for sure. She knew that whenever she came back to the living desert, she would visit her friend, the hummingbird, who would fly her to fairyland. As she was drifting off, she could feel the deep sleep fairy watching over her and her friends. And she felt so safe and so warm and so cozy. And she finally just let go. Sweet dreams.